Most men never notice the exact moment confidence starts slipping away because it doesn't vanish during failure or rejection or embarrassment, but during effort, during the quiet internal tightening that happens when a man begins watching himself too closely. When he enters a room and his attention subtly shifts from what is happening around him to how he is being perceived within it. And this shift feels so normal that it goes unquestioned, almost like a necessary upgrade to adulthood, because no one ever explains that confidence is not strengthened by constant self-correction, but slowly drained by it. And once that drain begins, it disguises itself as self-improvement, as awareness, as growth. Even though what is really happening is a man splitting himself in two, one part living the moment and the other standing above it, observing, evaluating, adjusting. And this internal observer never rests. It comments on tone, posture, timing, energy, reactions. And the more active it becomes, the harder it is for the man to feel settled, because presence cannot coexist with supervision. And yet this is exactly where most men unknowingly end up, moving through conversations while simultaneously reviewing themselves inside them. And nothing dramatic needs to happen for this erosion to take place. It shows up in ordinary interactions, a casual conversation, a pause that feels slightly longer than expected, a look that is hard to read, and in that small space, a man either remains present or retreats inward to manage the moment. And over time, this retreat becomes habitual, automatic, invisible, until interactions begin to feel heavier than they used to. Like every exchange requires effort, like silence is something that needs to be fixed, like moments must be guided or optimized before they slip away. And this is when confidence quietly turns into performance, not because the man wants to impress, but because he wants to feel secure, and security begins to feel conditional, dependent on outcomes, reactions, feedback. And once confidence depends on outcomes, it demands constant monitoring, and monitoring creates tension. And tension is something people feel immediately, even if they can't explain why, because humans respond less to words and more to nervous systems. And a nervous system that is busy evaluating itself cannot fully relax into connection, cannot fully listen, cannot fully arrive. And this is why so many men feel like they are doing everything right, yet something still feels off, like they have the tools, but not the ease, the knowledge, but not the grounding. Because ease doesn't come from knowing what to do. It comes from not needing to do anything extra to justify your presence. And this difference becomes obvious when you watch how men move through social space, because some men enter rooms as if they need to establish themselves immediately, scanning faces, adjusting energy, subtly asking for permission to exist there, while other men enter without urgency, without self-announcement, allowing the room to come to them rather than rushing to meet it. And the second group is often mistaken for being more confident when in reality they are simply less divided internally. They are not managing themselves, not correcting themselves, not narrating their actions in real time. And because of that, their attention remains outward, grounded in what is actually happening rather than how it is being evaluated. And this outward attention has a calming effect on others because attention that is not self-focused becomes spacious. It allows conversations to unfold without pressure, without steering, without subtle demands for validation. And people instinctively relax in that space, not because the man is impressive or dominant, but because nothing in him is asking them to perform. And this is the first realization most men miss, that confidence is not an energy you project, but a pressure you remove. And the pressure being removed is not external, but internal. The constant self-surveillance that turns living into a performance review. And once this surveillance becomes habitual, it creates a background anxiety that never fully shuts off. Because the man is always half present and half observing, half speaking and half editing, half listening and half planning his response. And this split prevents depth, because depth requires immersion, and immersion requires trust, and trust cannot exist when part of you is standing guard over yourself. And this is why even confident-seeming men often feel exhausted after social interactions, because exhaustion is the cost of constant self-management, and the tragedy is that this exhaustion is often mistaken for introversion or low energy or lack of charisma, when in reality it is simply the fatigue of being watched from the inside. And over time, this fatigue convinces a man that confidence is something he lacks rather than something he is interfere. And this is where the story finally closes, not with a dramatic transformation, but with a quiet return. Because the real shift happens when a man realizes that nothing new needs to be added to him for confidence to exist. It only appears when he stops abandoning himself in moments that feel uncertain, when he stays instead of performing, when he listens instead of scanning, when he allows silence instead of rushing to fill it. And in that staying, something settles deep in the body, a sense of having arrived without needing permission. And from that place, interactions lose their sharp edges, conversations slow down, responses become simpler, not because he has learned what to say, but because he is no longer afraid of what will happen if he says less. And people feel this immediately, not as attraction or dominance, but as ease, the kind that makes them lower their guard without realizing why. Because a man who is not trying to control how he is perceived does not pressure others to perform either. And this absence of pressure becomes his presence, steady, grounded, unmistakable. And over time, he notices that confidence no longer spikes or crashes based on reactions. It doesn't rise when things go well or disappear when they don't. It remains consistent because it is no longer tied to outcomes. And this consistency is what makes him feel solid in his own body, able to move through rooms and conversations without bracing himself, without rehearsing, without carrying the invisible weight of self.